would like to welcome Thomas Wallnig to our virtual stage. He will talk about what to teach digital humanities students about Phaidra. Thomas Wallnig is a historian working at the University of Vienna, teaching, among other things, courses in the university's recently established Digital Humanities Masters Program. And in the academic year 2020-2021, he also acted as a visiting professor at the universities of Padua and also of Klagenfurt. His background is that of an intellectual historian of early modern Catholic Europe. And during the past years, especially in his role as co-chair of COST Action, he has developed a broader interest in tools and also methods of computer-based analysis, especially with regard to early modern letter. Thomas, are you ready?
Yes, thank you, dear
You
Susanne.
Heartily welcome. Floor is yours.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for having me. A couple of caveats beforehand. I mean, this is a little bit like having a lecture during the Champions League finals. I suppose everyone will be watching other things these days. For our dear and esteemed Italian colleagues, Paduan colleagues who are here, I'm very glad you're here, and we're like following up a conversation that we had last year. Austria is deciding a lockdown most probably in these minutes. So expect there to be some rumor in the room. Nonetheless, I'll do my best to well, distract us and contribute something to this discussion. Well, how to put it? I was preparing this talk and thought what would be a useful thing to do, because we tend to know how it works when we present our projects, and we tend to see what the advantages and give me a second. Advantages and pitfalls of such a format are. So I thought it might be useful to do it the other way around for once, and not so much tell you about what I do, but rather about how I read Phaidra and what I teach people about Phaidra and what I think they should know about it. Why is that a challenge? We all know that there are several efforts and also good formats in cross-checking, so to bringing repository and data knowledge to the university public. Nonetheless, at least from my perspective as an active researcher, this sometimes does not go as deep as it could, meaning that researchers perhaps learn that there is Phaidra and see what Phaidra can do, but perhaps then stop with that information, and it takes them quite a long time before they really pick up the phone and start using that in their daily routine. So that's one part of the problem, that knowing and doing are two different pairs of shoes. And reversely, I realized that platform developers and the wonderful Phaidra team, and I assume in Vienna as well as in Padua, try to get that information, try to find out what the requirements of the researchers actually are. But here again, there's a problem. When you ask people to formulate a requirement they might not know about. So there's I sometimes observe something like a block there in not really getting down to the business we would like to do together. One of the possibilities that I see to change this is to address students. Why? First, we will all have experienced this in our own biographies. What you learned during your studies is what you use during your professional life. You rarely find the time after you enter professional life to really sit down and engage with something completely new. That scares people off. It's also often an investment of time and energy, which is ambiguous, not always rewarded the way it should be. And there's a whole conversation to be made about generation conflicts within humanities disciplines of a generation basically not having a mindset open for digital research and not really therefore enabling career paths that consider this. And the other advantage is that the more students know about what they actually can do, the more they will be able to ask specific questions and to customize the products and to basically respond to those kinds of questions that you often find in the questionnaires, and which then start going beyond, well, I would like to deposit data, but perhaps be a bit more specific and also help platform developers really work on some specific projects. I mean, I'm saying this with the experience and confidence of these things happening, because it has been my experience with Phaidra, also with other repositories. And that's the good thing. While at the same time, I think it's also important to constantly cross-check that knowledge, which is why I basically will inform you about my ignorance about Phaidra. So the task here is to tell you what I think I know, and then get corrected by the people who know better. Also perhaps because development has gone on, also perhaps because it's something I had only partly understood. Let's face it, it's really a hard job to get an overview of all the 25 construction sites you're dealing with all day. So what I'll do in this coming 15-20 minutes is show you 4 situations where I used Phaidra in, so where I taught people about the existence of Phaidra, or where I included Phaidra in strategic development considerations. And this is to say, where does that fit in the broader picture of digital humanities teaching? So the first slide is the University of Padua website, and I'm really glad that so many colleagues are here who were partly supporting me last year when I had a guest professorship in Padua, and I was trying to frame big data and social network analysis was the title of the course, as something that can only be considered when you know about where data comes from at your home institution, and how you also as a student might be able to deposit your data. Michela Zorzi, who I saw earlier is here with us, came to have a guest lecture in that course, where she gave a fantastic presentation on data management at the University of Padua. And I think what was interesting for those people in their first master's year of mobility studies, nothing DH related, was to get an awareness that data produced in the process of academic work, even if it's only a qualification work, should and needs to be stored. And I remember from that discussion that it was really it was news for those students, of course, because that's why they attend those courses, to understand that if they create a database, if they create a scholarly digital edition, if they create a table, then what should happen to that is that it be fed into an institutional repository. And we saw a couple of good examples for that. It was very straightforward. And it was also the most hands-on way of showing students you have to think about licensing, you have to think about reusability. So the course in itself was one that dealt with how to handle data, what are the fundamental trajectories of data analysis. But it was important to slot in this part about institutional repositories, which in my view is something like the anchoring or the grounding of any digitally oriented teaching at a higher education institution, because otherwise we just lose this. And if nobody tells the students, then their tables will die with their laptops, basically. Now, a short hint and shout out to the Paduan colleagues. I've been very tenacious, if not to say nasty, in nudging and urging some of the representatives at the history department to keep that dialogue going. And I know that the success is limited, but rest assured that that there are some concrete steps underway that, as I hope, should make sure that this kind of conversation between people who do digital humanities and people who run the institutional repository is not getting lost. On the other hand, it's not my university, so I also know where my limits are there. I also taught a course here in Vienna, which was called Digital Scholarly Editing, and which was taught in the past summer semester by Georg Vogeler, Professor of Digital Humanities in Graz, Christoph Ecker, who is a long experienced editor of medieval sources, of papal chancery mainly, here at the University of Vienna at the Institut für Österreichische Geschichtsforschung, and myself. Well, in Christoph Egger's part, we were talking about scholarly editing without the digital, textual criticism, the history of digital scholarly scholarly editing since the 18th century, or even earlier. Examples, who is Lachmann, how do the Monumenta Germanis. So the package of what you need to know about scholarly editing. And while Georg Vogeler was doing a hands-on part, teaching people the basics of TI, and having them make assignments, encoding different kinds of texts, encoding a critical apparatus. So really, the whole scope of the course was to say, you find a letter, and of that letter or that page in a manuscript or that chronicle or that literary work, you create the blueprint for a digital scholarly edition. And with whatever means, you also do that in a way that it can be printed, so a non-digital edition, so to say. Yeah, my part was to say, well, if you create that data, if you create an encoded version of your texts, what can you do with that? where do you deposit it, under what conditions, and I think this is one of the most fundamental things to make clear to students at that point. Do you want to have just the data? Do you want to have a dump of 700 TI-XML files, or of that one TI-XML that you deposit there? Or do you want a graphic user interface that allows you to interact with that data? And this is an important distinction, because understanding that the data file may be still there in 50 years, while my graphic user interface has gone lost because nobody adapted it to the browser updates. Yeah, to understand this difference is really something very important for students to also grasp the meaning of sustainability. Data sustainability is something different from graphic user interface sustainability. And this is something that really needs to enter the heads very early, because one of the talks you often hear is that, well, we had this website and then the website went offline and the data is lost. Yes, but that's due to the website and not due to the data, or it's due to the way of data storage that you chose beforehand. So bringing in Phaidra here as one of the Austrian data repository possibilities is also a way to say, well, each repository offers you that package in a different way. And this is something you should just know about. There's not something better or something worse. But if you deposit in the Arche, you'll not ever have a graphic user interface. If you deposit in the GAMS, you will. If you deposit with Phaidra, we're working on one. And however, this is something. There's a question you need to know that you can ask it. And this is what you see here is basically a screenshot from one of the slides, and the way in which I thought repository knowledge was necessary for this kind of course. We also had a little group work there where, with the example of the PHAIDRa correspondence, I had them try work on a data management plan. I found out that this was too much of a challenge. So it was clear that the course is too much on different topics for me to be able to really expand on fair data management plan and its contents. However, that's a takeaway point too. So my third example is from a course that I am now teaching, which is the Digital Humanities Reading course from the DH Master. Perhaps I should repeat that all of the three courses I'm mentioning here are in master programs, which means that most students already come with a specific kind of preparation. They already heard of something. It's the right moment to pick people up there. I'm also interested in slotting DH content and repository knowledge into some teachings at the bachelor level, but this needs to be more low threshold. Yeah, so master students are usually quite well prepared, and I'm interpreting this DH reading course in a way that it's not just a sort of guided reading, which of course we're doing. So the main part of the course is to find DH papers and try to understand the content related part as well as the tech part. That's the main goal here. But then I have a last part, which I called Seek and Summarize, which is the last 4 lessons, in which I'm trying to replicate this element of bachelor teaching That is, how do I find literature? How do I cite correctly? What can I do to build my bibliography? Well, this is what we usually do in the bachelor. And we usually do that with a stubborn view to the printed book, which is not a surprise at all. You know, I'm an early modern intellectual historian, so totally aware of where our bibliographical standards came from. And the same way in which in the 16th century, they argued about including date and place and printer exclamation mark into a bibliographical reference. In the same way, I argue we should start thinking about including institutional repository, code writers, graphic user interface designers, and the like information into our citations. Usually, I mean, it's a whole construction side which needs to be addressed at some point. And usually what you tend to find is website access lost. And perhaps if you're lucky, you'll get a suggestion how to quote a database entry. And I know that Andreas Herles, who speaks after me, and their Donauhandel project are exemplary in that case, in that they basically offer you a way how to quote their database. Not everyone does. And therefore, and it's a very vast field, because there is a long chain of elements and actors who in one way or the other contribute to the existence of that digital resource. And to train that and to raise the awareness of people, I have this digitized bibliographical part of the course. And here I think we can work well with Phaidra and look, for instance, at ebooks on demand, and then have them compare that to Austrian books online and say, well, what do you have here? What do you have there? Do you have transcriptions? What about the metadata structure? What about the usability? So probably it's going to be a better here and plus minus on both parts. And then it's also important, and this is a shout out to Martin Gasteiner and Janusz Bekeszi, to reflect the availability at the University of Vienna of this Transkribus plus topic modeling Gensim pipeline, into which you might feed material that you've prepared, that you've like started to process in a digital way. I think browse the collections, think of what you can do with the material. That would rather point to understanding the collection structure of Phaidra and the way in which collection can be a very vast container for very heterogeneous things, open access, but also very concrete collection, like Nachlass collected papers, the cartographic collection. And to see also that there are these sub-collections which like technically replicate the collection structure on the first level, but then give you the possibility to do something like substructuring. So to understand the functioning. And then this already points to the next consideration. Look for downloadable data. We will probably discuss here or in the next years, or perhaps also after the next talk, about actual data resources being stored, and I mean TI-XMLs concretely, or CSVs stored in Phaidra. And I am, with that Tengnagel project that I talked about last year, going in that direction, that it would be great to have even more such reusable digital resources basically by that I mean not just images in Phaidra. And again, that's a question that comes when you urge students to look for the big data resources with which you then can do large-scale data analysis. So this is the moment where you need to switch back to, okay, is there a huge dump of data which I can get onto my computer and then start working with it. And to understand that perhaps it's not even the primary goal of an institutional repository to be your data archive of reference for the big bibliographical scope, but rather safeguard the academic data production from an institution in order to be retrievable in the meta search engines that you then need to know. Yeah, and think about how to cite the data resource. Think about who contributed to the existence of this specific resource, and try to experiment a little bit with existing bibliographical formats. So this is a tinkering process, basically. Take what you know and add to the written by, edited by, translated by, published by set of formulae you have, add the other things and try to put them into the right order. So then, as a last point, I have the so-called digital strategy of the Institut für Österreichische Geschichtsforschung, and here, which I'm trying to pursue, I've been trying to pursue for a couple of years now, and which is hopefully going to go into its next phase sometime early 2022. And the interesting thing is that here Phaidra appears from a totally different perspective. Yes, also storage of digital objects, manuscript images, representation with viewers. Yes, also storage of data files, the multiple digital scholarly editions we're doing, potentially representation via a graphic user interface, but also two other things that come with that broader institutional responsibility, and that I would not necessarily teach students. One is uScholar, which is the institutional repository for publications by University of Vienna researchers. So it's this secondary publishing tool with the restrictions that everyone has, PHAIDRac in Freiburg. It's that one tool that the university wants you to use because it's like collecting your papers, and that you might want to use because in that way you have a firm institutional archive for your scholarly output. However, there's also the publishers, and this is a chapter of its own. However, a uScholar is there, and it's great, it's there. And then there's a data management plan collection, which I find great. And I also know that Susanne Blumesberger and others are currently professionalizing this data management, data stewardship set of knowledge into online teaching materials and basically wrapped up information. And that's great. And it, stop me if I'm wrong, but I think it also relates to this searchable corpus of 800, what it is, plus existing data management plans, which you can look at, and you have best practice examples, and you basically see how other people do that. What I was not really successful in is filtering out the humanities data management plans, but perhaps I've just been looking in the wrong way. Yeah, and so this is all I had to say. I'm very much looking forward to being corrected and to hearing from you what I perhaps understood only partly. But believe me, I think this is useful, and it was really good fun to try to look at Phaidra this way. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I think it's very worthwhile that you are looking at Phaidra from your perspective, because you're an excellent scientist and you are also an expert now in data management. So both together, it's very worthwhile to have you with us. Thank you very much. Concerning the data management plans, you just said you had a look into this collection. Yes, we are working on this collection now to have a little bit more insight in this, but it's quite a movement of all these data management plans who are existing now. And in future, we hope to have also these from the FWF, but they are not available now. But the researchers are asking us, of course, if we have some examples for them, but we don't have one. But I think we are in a good way. We are working on these topics. And as you said before, we have also thought about data stewards and so on, and expanding our data management plan consulting, and we have this research data management plan now, and also our policy. And so together, I hope that we will go a good way. But now I open the discussion for everybody. Do you have any questions or comments? Maybe also Rahman is also with us now. I don't see him now, but maybe he will also.
Yes.
Okay. We can't hear you, Raman.
Sorry, Thomas. Also a very nice presentation, and this is also what Susanne already said. It's very good to work with you very close, because you have both perspectives, from the science and from the data management, and this is a good way to bring more people in the direction of thinking of data in a sustainable way. And with this teaching perspective, it's really great. So I like this what you do, and thank you for this talk. It was really great.
Thanks a lot. I mean, the beauty of this all is that it really comes out of an ongoing discussion, and I trust next time we sit together and tinker about the TI publisher graphic user interface for the Tengnagel data, you might tell me, well, Thomas, why don't you look at this? And we have worked with this, and it's to put it very boldly, it's making oneself vulnerable in perhaps not understanding perfectly what this is about, enhances the possibility of people to really start the discussion. I'm just learning that the more you show DH content in its with its problems, that what gets people thinking. And I'm very grateful for the support, and really do consider this also as an invitation for a feedback loop. And I do say the same to the esteemed colleagues from Padua, mutatis mutandis, of course, but this is a conversation that every university needs to have. And the question is not if, but when. And the advantage of the two Phaidra, Padua and Vienna institutions, like working very closely together, also gives you a certain lever in perhaps pushing forward with this at your university?
Thank you, Thomas. I think you mentioned this that we are not perfect, and so we are also not the people from the science. We are only people from the data management. And I think the imperfection of this, what we are doing, is the beauty of this what we are doing, because this opens it up to learn from each other. And I think this is very important.